welcome back to the Secret Sunday session. Today I'm joined by Allira Potter. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You are more than welcome. I'm super excited to have you on today to talk all about the things that you are currently doing in this space. I mean, when we talk about someone that has a title or a label in space, you have many, from author to coach to motivational speaker. I think the list goes on in terms of what you do with your work. And I mean, with that, as we said, there's so many labels that you're finding that you have in this space and so many different avenues that you're creating in order to start necessary conversations. But who is Allira Potter? And what does she do with herself? Because there's a lot of words that, as we said, can be chucked around, but who do you define her as?
Oh, I love that. I love that question because I feel like I just wear so many different hats. I like to think I'm this like sassy, witchy gal who's doing really cool things in the online space. But then in my real life, I'm quite introverted and I love to just have lots of downtime. But I guess if we're talking work wise, yeah, I'm an author of a book called Wild and Witchy. And I like to think of that book as sort of the Bible for people wanting to step into their spirituality and things like that. I work within the online social media space. I guess you could say an influencer. I know that that word gets such a bad rap, but I influence in a way that is really conscious. I love to talk about things like body kindness, self-love, mental health, culture, just anything that sparks a conversation, really. What else do? I do lots of public speaking. Yeah, I don't know. I do really cool things, and I'm just so happy just to be living my best life, which is amazing, and just helping others to live their best life, so to speak.
That's incredible. It's almost through your own experiences that you're able to then go out and create and inform and
Mm,
educate. And something, as you said, I know influencer is a word that we just chuck
mm,
around all the time and it can bring a lot of hate, but it's
mm.
evident that I feel that there are really positive influencers like yourself out there spreading great messages and looking at the message that you say that you are sharing on your platforms. Why? Why start this message and why pursue it?
Yeah, I mean, like if I'm looking at my why, I started social media probably about 4 years ago. And I was doing it from a space of I'm sharing my intuitive readings online. I'm sharing things that are just trying to motivate people just to get up out of bed and just sort of live their life. And I guess from that point, my social media sort of blew up because I was sharing really conscious messages. And oh my gosh, I've forgotten the rest of the question. What else did you say?
Basically just your why you've
Yeah,
decided to do this and pursue this.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I guess I was sharing things on social media that resonated with a lot of people. But then I was also creating conversations within the wellness space because I am a coach within the space of just motivating people. And I'm also working in the wellness space where it comes to like modeling or meditation, just running certain wellness aspects. And I started to create this conversation around the wellness narrative and how the wellness space is very, I should say, whitewashed. And I was sort of like, why aren't I seeing bodies like mine? Why aren't I seeing people of color in these spaces? Why is society trying to tell me to lose weight or be a certain like body type or whatever it may be? So I guess my why is it's constant, it's evolving because I'm just wanting to create safe spaces for people to have hard conversations, but also be super motivated and driven to just make change.
I love that. Is it hard in the online world to create safe spaces for people?
I definitely think it can be, but I think I've created such a cool community where people feel so open to share their lived experiences or just things that are happening in their world. I've just launched my coaching side of things called We Are Expansive, and that's created this really safe space and safe capsule for women especially to come in and be like, hey, I'm struggling with my mental health. Hey, I actually don't know how to be the best version of myself, or I actually don't know how to cater or care for my mental health. So I think I personally have created a really good, safe community for women just to step in and be like, hey, things aren't that great and that's okay, but I just want to try and fix that. Yeah.
Mm, that's awesome. And I mean, why? Why now? Because I feel you know, a lot of us have had this conscious messaging for a little while now, and we can say that even at the start of social media, we're becoming aware of influences and the toxic traits of
Mm,
social media. Yet, why do you believe women, especially, let's target women, why
mm.
are they turning around now and wanting to learn more about, say, the unhealthy habits and how to be more conscious about themselves and looking to self care?
Feel like there's been this big driver on social media. I don't know if you've noticed it, but I think when social media first started, it was portrayed as this like you have to be a certain size, you have to be happy all the time, you have to be just XYZ. And I think a lot of women are sort of waking up and realizing, hey, actually, I have good days, I have bad days, I have to care for my mental health, I have to set boundaries, I have to self care, all of these things. And then there's also people realizing that there is a lot of influencers within this space that are influencing the wrong thing and sending a really, I'm going to say, a toxic message to a lot of young females. So I think a lot of women are stepping up and being like, we just need to send out better messaging and things like that. So I think a lot of women are, I guess, waking up and realizing, hey, like I need to follow people who are aligned with my values and my beliefs in order for me to feel quite happy and safe within myself.
Did you ever get caught up in it at the start on social media?
Oh my gosh, completely. I remember starting on social media and just, I remember someone said to me, like, oh, who do you follow on social media? And I just remember going through my following list and being like, I follow a lot of white people. Why is that? I follow a lot of thin white people. Why aren't I following people of color? And I just remember my mindset was always, oh my God, I need to be in the gym every single day. I need to be like getting really fit. I need to be going on these hot girl walks and I need to be a size 10 and all this sort of stuff. So I think, yeah, social media has definitely changed and I definitely was caught up in that space. But I say to people and I say to my clients, we can change that narrative once we are following the right people who are aligned with us.
What does that do to you when you know, go through your feed and you see that, say, and all of us, I feel like, go through a
Mm,
similar sort of experience on social media where you're scrolling through your feed and you don't see people that are relatable or that you can
mm,
see are like yourself. What do you think
mhm,
does that to a person when they're constantly receiving this messaging, whether consciously or
mm.
subconsciously, that they're not portrayed on social media as, say, an ideal person?
I feel, I mean, I can only sort of speak from personal experience, but it made me feel shit about myself, to say the least, when I was following the wrong type of people that weren't fitting into a curvier body. I was only following like really thin people, and I was following white people, and I just wasn't, they weren't filling my cup, so to speak, and they weren't making me feel really good. And I know that's the first thing that we all do when we wake up is just reach for our phones and just doom scroll on social media. So I think for me, it was really important to be following curvier bodies, different types of bodies, inclusive bodies, just a wide variety of human beings for me to just realize I'm a human, they are human, and we all are going through something at the moment. We may not all love a certain part of our bodies. So I think that was super important for me, just to make sure that I am following just people who look like me.
Mm. Did you find it hard to find those people at the start?
Oh, definitely. I think it's really hard at the start because you're like, who do I follow? I'm so used to following all these like big name influencers that are just that typical sort of look. So definitely at the start. But then I think once you do find to start people, you'll find more and your algorithm will sort of like gift you more cool people
Mhm.
and people who are aligned with you.
Mm. Yeah, it is. That algorithm's such a powerful thing. It's like as soon as you
Yes.
like one thing or you comment on something, all of a sudden your whole world changes. I feel like even half the time I'll have my phone switched off and I'll be having a conversation about potentially going overseas on a flight or something. All of a sudden all these flight deals come up. I'm like, who is listening?
You're
It's
like,
like a big
they're
brother.
listening to me. No, yeah.
So it is. I feel like we have to be so conscious about how we
Mm,
speak, how we engage online, and that as well. I mean, it's great to have that conversation with people that are able to, and that I feel sometimes have more of a mature understanding. But to a
mm,
young person, how do we get that messaging across? Because
mm,
sometimes all they want to do is just follow their friends, and their
mm.
friends might be that perception of what an influencer look like,
Mhm,
whether it's the type A body, a certain
mhm,
color, a certain size, but you don't want to unfollow because obviously that causes an extra controversy
mhm,
that you don't want to have to confront them at school.
mhm,
So how do we have that conversation to young people to really
mhm.
filter through their feed?
Yeah, you know what? I feel like young people now are so open to having really good conversations about this sort of stuff. So I feel like if it's me having a conversation with a young person, I'm always like, don't be afraid to mute people on social media. If you're not aligning with them, you don't have to unfollow, but you can mute them so they're not on your feed anymore if you're finding that triggering. I think it's really important that you're following the right type of people, but again, it is very hard, isn't it, when a lot of the influencers are so young and are
Mm.
so sort of directed at that younger demographic of like 12 to 16 or whatever it may be. So I think for young people, please don't be afraid to mute. If you feel like you do need to unfollow, then 100% make sure you're putting your mental health first. That is so important.
And that's, I feel, the messaging that I try to portray as well to young people is that if something is triggering you, it's a point where you
Mm,
need to step back. And if you feel like you can't step back, there are luckily like things on social media platforms now where you can mute or you can put
mm,
on time limits. And it's really engaging in those practices in order to support yourself. So I
mm,
couldn't agree more with that messaging.
mm,
Let's dive into then a little bit about intuition. It's
mhm,
something that you do a lot in your work, which I absolutely love. And I feel like it is getting more of a conversation as well in the
mm,
media, in people's personal journeys. But when we
mm.
actually look at it, what is it?
I love this question. I love this question. So I think intuition, and it is a common question that I get all the time, like, how do I differentiate my anxiety and my intuition? How do I know that it's not my anxiety trying to get in the way of something? For humans who are wanting to step into their intuition, firstly, we do have to understand that we need to become a little bit more present and a little bit more grounded. For me, my intuition, again from personal experience, for me, it's like a green light, red light situation. So if I'm meeting someone, for instance, sometimes we can pick up on the energy. Our intuition is trying to sort of tell us, oh, hey, that's a bit of a red light person, or it's a bit of a green light person. For me, if it's a green light, I'll get a sense of a feeling over my body. My body will feel like calm. It'll feel really present and it'll feel like I'm sort of like stepping into their space because I want to learn more about that person. If I'm getting a bit of a red light with that person, my body will get a little bit hot and it will be a little bit like, a bit standoffish. That's my intuition trying to tell me, hey, like definitely keep your space, keep your distance, protect yourself. So I hope that sort of helps in that sense with everyday intuition. When it comes to spiritual intuition, because I think there's a little bit of a difference. Sometimes our intuition can be little things like, when we see, I guess, like if we're out and about and we're walking around, we might see like a little feather or something. Is this like a little message for us? Do we need to tap into our intuition to be like, oh, is that a little message for me? Is that something that I need to take on board? But I hope that sort of gives you a little bit of an understanding about intuition. But overall, I think it's very much a feeling. And sometimes your anxiety steps in the way to stop your intuition from coming forward. So it's definitely a feeling. And you'll know when you come into that situation.
Wow. And how do you know the difference then between, say, your
Mm,
anxiety voice and your
mhm,
intuition? Because as you said, if it steps in, sometimes we're so
mm.
used to hearing that voice that we don't even know what we feel.
Yeah. For me, when I know it's my anxiety, it's almost like my ego is trying to step in the way. And it's almost like someone's here being like, don't do it, whatever. Like that's my anxiety sort of stepping in. Whereas my intuition, you can trust it. And you're like, oh, that feels really nice. Is that my intuition trying to give me a little bit of a nudge or a little bit of guidance? So I definitely think for me personally, it's definitely a feeling.
Mm. And you talk about being present in order to
Mm,
really feel that. What does that
mm.
look like?
I mean, being present, I guess most of us are sort of like here, but we're not actually physically here, are we sometimes? For me, being present is just like grounding myself, whether that's like meditation, journaling, breath work, going for a walk, not when we go for a walk, a lot of us will take our headphones. For me, sometimes I don't take my headphones so I can tune in to everything that's happening around me. So I think that's a way of sort of trying to be present in everything. I mean, we can talk about those senses, like tuning in, the smells around us, the sounds that we're hearing, the feeling around us. Like sometimes we just forget to actually stop and just be like, oh, I actually need to like feel where I am. I need to smell where I am. I need to hear where I am. So that's sort of a way that you can get very present within yourself.
It's funny because so many people will come up with excuses to avoid being present. And
Mm,
a lot of the time, one of the big ones is we're too busy. We don't have time for that.
mm,
How do you get over that? I don't want to say excuse because I do
mhm,
know that a lot of us do live very busy lifestyles. But how can we become more present if we have a schedule that is action packed? And the
mhm,
idea of just going for a walk without headphones, without calling
mm,
someone, without planning something seems so insane. How
mm.
can people strip it back and really implement this in their life?
I like this because this is what I love to argue with people who live that narrative. If I'm busy, I don't have time to be present. Yes, you do, because what is another thing that we do every single day? We go to the coffee shop or we make our coffee in the morning. So, whenever you're at the coffee shop or you're making your coffee, I want you to just like literally stop and be present. Pop away your phone, actually tune into the sounds that are around you, smelling the coffee if you're making it. That's a way for you to be present in that situation right then and now. And that's a form of mindfulness. So I definitely will argue with people when they're like, I can't do that. Like, that's, I don't have time for that. Yeah, you do, because you probably go and get your morning coffee every day from your favorite cafe. So put your phone away, stop, be present in everything that you are actually doing in that scenario.
Do you think people are scared of that?
Yeah, 100%. 100% because we're so used to running ourselves like almost into the ground. We are always on the go, we're always hustling, and it's just like that is such a bad culture that we've, I guess, brought into society. And it's just like stop and be present. What are we scared of?
Mm. And I mean, you talk about you having a busy schedule, you're wearing so many
Mm.
different hats. How do you prioritize in your daily life being present practices?
Yeah, I mean, well, this morning I got up and went to the gym, and I know that that is 45 minutes of my time that I have to be present in that 45-minute class. I don't have my phone. There's no internal noises. I'm just focusing and I'm here and I'm present. But there's also softer things that I do where I'll journal most days or I'll pull a card. It's just those little tiny little rituals, I guess, that I do in order to feel really present.
And what does being present give people? Because, often people say, well, it's just, me just tuning in and listening. I mean, it's not going to give me anything. But is there actually something that people can get out of it that is long lasting or
Mm.
sustainable for their actual health?
As soon as you're saying that, I'm sitting here like, yeah, you'll get clarity. Trust me. You'll feel I think the importance of being present daily is going to help you be able to make informed decisions in life. Because sometimes when we make decisions, we're doing it really quick and really abruptly. But when we're present, we're actually sort of making a conscious choice about if this is a yes answer, if this is a no answer. Long term, you being present is setting yourself up to make just better mindset choices, be more positive in life, set stronger boundaries, all of these little things that can just help you in everyday life. So I definitely think grounding and being present is such a long-term helpful thing for you as a human being.
Is it a one time thing? Like, can you sit somewhere and be present in a moment and then make that decision and it be good and you find clarity? Or is it something that you have to consistently do and then you find the answers and then you find clarity sort of along the journey?
I feel like it would be sort of different for everybody, wouldn't it? I feel
Mm.
like, yeah, I definitely think it would be so different for every single person in that scenario.
Mm. And when did you find being present and intuition? When did you start to really step into this side of yourself?
Yeah. Well, if we're getting really deep, so I was only just talking to my fiance about this yesterday, actually. So about 4 years ago, I was going through a really bad stage. I want to say 18 months of alcohol and substance abuse. I was just running myself into the ground. I was partying every weekend. I just wasn't caring for my mind, body, spirit. I was doing all the wrong things. And look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that partying is wrong because it's so much fun. Like, I just, at that time in my life, that's what I just obviously had to do in order to get to where I am now. So I ran myself in the ground for a solid 18 months of just this vicious cycle. And then I had a little bit of a light bulb moment, a little bit of an epiphany where I was like, if I keep living my life like this, I'm actually, I'm going to end up, I'm going to end up in the ground. I need to stop what I'm doing. And I needed to lean on something in order to step away from the drug and alcohol use. So for me, I stepped into leaning on spirituality. I leant on pulling my cards every day. I went sober for a solid 9 months. I really started to become present. I promised myself that I would meditate daily, I would exercise, I would move my body, I would just do all these things in order to become fully present and fully just aware of everything that was happening around me. And then that sort of led me down to studying to become a life coach, learning more about spirituality, writing my book, understanding how to care for my mental health, and just everything that I put on social media, I guess. So that's how I got into everything that I'm doing now. I guess I went through a really dark time to get to this like light that I'm currently sitting in now.
Congratulations on that journey and really stepping into wanting to pursue healthier habits and
Mm,
to be where you are today. Like that's phenomenal to overcome that on your own as well.
yeah,
Um,
thank you.
Looking at those dark times though, if you don't mind me sort of touching a bit about
Yeah.
that, why? Why do you feel like you started to turn to alcohol and drugs to cope?
Mm. Good question. So for me, I was experiencing grief later on in life. So I lost my mum to cancer at 17. And I guess like a lot of people, we can either face the grief head on or we can shut it away. And that's what I did. I shut it away and I was like, I will deal with this at a later stage in life when I feel like dealing with that grief. And I was married to a man and we divorced, we separated, and that swelled up a lot of grief for me. I was going through a relationship breakdown. I then started experiencing the loss of my mum. As an outlet to cope with that, I stepped into being a little party gal, going out every weekend, binge drinking, finding any substance I could get my hands on to numb the pain. So that's how I dealt with that grief, was turning to substance and alcohol abuse, which
Did you
is
know
just
Yeah, sorry, but did
no,
you
you're fine.
know when you were in the middle of that, that what you were doing was unhealthy for yourself and was a coping
Mm.
mechanism rather than something that you actually wanted to do?
I think there were moments for me where I was like, you know that this is wrong for you. Why are you doing it? But I kept feeling that ultimate high. I think anyone who has had an alcohol issue will understand that constant high that you get. That I was like, I love this high so much. I love it so much. Why would I want to come down from this? And so I think I did have moments where I was like, oh, like this is really bad, but also like this high is really bloody good. Why would I want to come down from this?
It is. It's such a catch, I feel like, with anything that people turn to in order to cope that may not be the right coping mechanisms for a person is that high, as you said, it's temporary, but it's almost in that
Mm,
escapism that people feel that comfort and that security in not having to deal with the things that are really hard and that have been there for such a long
yeah.
period of time.
Yeah. And that's what I did. I just fully like escaped and just like dealt with it that way, unfortunately. But I guess sort of coming out of it, there were moments where, yeah, it was like it was very hard to lean on something else to deal with the grief. And I think that's where people maybe do get scared when they're wanting to become present, is because we have to deal with our shit. And that's what I had to do. And it was so uncomfortable. But in order to get, comfortable in a situation, we have to get super uncomfortable. And that's what I had to do.
And what did recovery look like for you?
You know what? It was for me, and again, personal experience, I my mindset allowed me to go completely cold turkey. To be like, you have to be so uncomfortable in this situation. You have to face this head on. I remember texting my dad and just being like, hey, just letting you know, like, I actually think I have a really bad problem with alcohol and drugs. Not too sure what I'm going to do, but just letting you know because I know that I'm going to need support at some point. I just don't know when. Dad was like, well, firstly, didn't even know that you had an issue. You've kept that front really bloody good. Secondly, no worries, I'll be here when you need me. I was like, cool. I just remember I had to sort of make lots of lists of things that I needed to do in order to distract me from certain things. I spoke to a therapist. That was the biggest thing for me. And I had to, sadly, I mean, not sadly, but back then it was really sad, but I had to get rid of a lot of friends. I had to be like, you're a bad influence on me. I actually can't be friends with you anymore. So, yeah, for me, it was just all these little things that I had to do in order to just really figure out that alcohol and drugs were a really big problem for me. And I just had to eliminate the factors, the triggers, the causes in order to just get where I am now.
Mm. And how scary is that sometimes when you say you had to eliminate some friends
Mm.
because it's that fear then of I may be all on my own and I will just
Hmm.
have me and I will have to go through this with my own company and knowing that nobody else is going to have my back. I have to have my back. And that is terrifying.
It was so scary because, like, I'll sit here right then and right here, right now, and tell you I was alone while I was doing this. I realized that my friends were my party friends. And they weren't really my friends. They were just the ones that I could text and be like, hi, like, do you want to go and party? Like, do you want to go and do this, X, Y, Z? So that was really uncomfortable to do.
How did you keep turning up
Terrifying.
for yourself? Yeah. How did you keep turning up?
I just I realized that life is way too short and I didn't want to be in this really toxic cycle for the rest of my life. And I knew that I guess as a First Nations woman, I was really walking down a path where it could be really bad. And I just knew that I had to really show up for myself and be like, come on, like you've been gifted this beautiful life. You just need to start living it.
Incredible that you can have that mindset in such a dark time. And I know, of course, it
Mm.
wouldn't have been all rainbows all of that time,
Mm.
and really hard to deal with that. So I don't dismiss that at all because it would have been so, so tough for you. But looking back on that now, do you feel like you've healed and dealt with that grief that was there beforehand?
I think, I mean, I always talk about grief in the sense of it's never something that will go away. It's always going to be there. It's always going to be there. There's always going to be triggers. There's always going to be moments where you're like, oh, like this sucks. Like, why? Why me? But I've learned to deal with it and I understand my triggers and I know how to cope in these situations now. So I definitely don't think I've fully healed from grief. I just think I've learned to just sort of live with it there.
Mm. And going back to potentially drinking alcohol, is that something
Mhm.
that you decided to go back and still go out
Mm.
and party and experience it?
Yeah, definitely. So I went sober for, yeah, 9 months. And I remember reintroducing alcohol and being like, cool, you can drink, but you can't be an idiot. You just need
Yeah.
to make conscious choices. And like, there's definitely been moments over the years where I have slipped back into that sort of state, which is only bloody normal for someone who has had an addiction to alcohol or drugs. It is only normal. But I think for me is when I know I'm slipping back, I'm really self-conscious and I'm really self-aware to be like, oh, you're slipping back to that state. Let's not go back there. Let's pull you right back to where you are now. Like, let's stay here. So I think, yeah, I mean, I still go out and I have a drink and I like party, but I'm just trying to make sure that I'm making really conscious, informed decisions. So I'm not ending up back in that really toxic 18 months that I was in 2020.
And you're really open about obviously your experience with
Mm,
alcohol and your abusive relationship with drugs as well. But
mm.
was there ever a situation where you did feel ashamed?
No, you know what? It's so I don't think I felt ashamed because the people around me made me feel like it was okay and it was
Mm,
normal, if that makes sense. And I don't feel ashamed about it now because I think it's only human for me to be like, yep, I had a problem. And sometimes I can slip back into that problem, but I can get out of it. So I don't think I feel any shame around it at all. And I know a lot of people can feel that shame, but you know what? Like if you've pulled yourself out of that rubble and that darkness, like you should be giving yourself more gratitude.
I couldn't agree more. And anyone that
Mm,
goes through something, it's like wear it as a badge of honor because I feel like we all have
mm,
those scars and we all have those stories to tell, and we shouldn't be hiding them because
mm.
in truth and in telling, we can really aspire and help other people through that, which is what you're doing. So honestly, as I say, congratulations on that journey and coming through and now sharing that message that I think so many people need to hear as well.
Thank you.
Now let's look at a little bit about your book
Mm,
and becoming an
mhm.
author. Another congratulations.
Yeah,
How amazing.
I
Why did
know.
you decide to write a book and why on this topic?
Oh my gosh. So I've got my book here actually. I'll show you.
Amazing, amazing.
It's
Show us.
so good. So this is Wild and
Oh, I
Witchy.
love
This is
it. How cool.
my cool little book. I don't know. I guess everything that I was putting on social media, I someone saw the potential in it being a book. And I was like, yeah, I think this is perfect. I have all the material. I just needed to put something together. And I wanted it to be a book that people would just come back to when they're wanting
Mm,
to learn about spirituality. They're wanting to have tools when they are going through a grieving process, a breakup, a friendship breakdown, whatever it may be. So it's just a book, it's a little Bible that I wished I had when I was a teenager as well too, and that's what we created, Wild and Witchy, which is so cool.
Such a great name. I love it. How did you come up with the name?
You know what? It was so funny. I like put it in the group chat with all my friends and I was like, okay, let's come up with a name. And everyone was like putting these crazy ideas in there. And the word wild kept popping up, but the word witch kept popping up. And we sort of just were like, wild and witchy kind of sounds fun. Let's pitch that to the publisher and see if they go with it. And yeah, the publisher was like, I love this title. Let's just roll with it.
Was it scary getting it published?
I think it was more exciting. I think it
Mm.
was just more exciting rather than scary. We worked for so long on it and I just wanted it out in the world. And I just knew that the right people would find this book.
I love that. That's actually so good. The
Mm.
right people will find this book. That's
Yeah,
ultimately that's what you want. You want people reading it and engaging in your content that want to be there and that are taking things away from it. Um,
yeah.
do you have a certain page or a certain sort of section or chapter of the book
Mm.
that you think everybody should read?
I I always say that women in particular need to read the self-love chapter because a lot of us are just not accepting of ourselves. And I'm like, why? We're all beautiful, we're all powerful. And I think if women are struggling with understanding who they are and who they want to become, then the self-love section is a nice, tough love section, but a soft way, in a way for you to step into going on your self-love journey.
And what does self-love mean to you?
Oh my gosh, it means so much. I mean, self-love for me, I understand it's not this linear journey that we go on, but I think for me, self-love is just making sure that I'm putting myself first. I'm setting strong boundaries. I'm loving myself as much as I possibly can, but also being aware that there may be parts of my body that I don't really love, and that's okay. So I think, yeah, self-love, I guess overall is just not this really crazy linear journey that it's just me accepting me for me.
That's beautiful. And I think it's so simple in that because there is a lot of messaging about self-love in the world
Mm,
today. And I feel we can really get lost in what that actually means then, and people then get confused of what is self-love? Is it a practice
mm.
or is it a belief or what is actually we should be doing to pursue self-love in our lives? And do you have what you would sort of mimic as a practice that you pursue every day to ensure you're loving yourself?
I mean, I have said to clients before, like, I don't think there's any proper definition for what self-love is because it's defined by you. And it's however you want to show up for yourself. For me, showing up for myself could be as simple as going to the gym of a morning. It could be just making sure that I'm taking a walk, or it could be setting a boundary to be like, actually, I don't want to do that today. I just want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix, just little things. So self love is definitely defined by the individual.
And I feel like in order to do that, you have to be present because you have to listen.
Yes, we have to be uncomfortable to get comfortable.
Incredible. And where can people find your book and buy one so they can to those
Yeah.
chapters?
Yep. So just via my website, allirapotter.com, you can buy a link, yeah, buy a book from there. Or I'm pretty sure it's still in stores and stuff too, which is kind of crazy, like Kmart and Big W. So, I mean, yeah, you can get it anywhere. And there's an audio book as well too on Spotify, which is
Oh,
great.
incredible. Love
If
that.
you want to hear my voice more, then you can just download the audio book.
Oh, so you recorded it yourself and like said
Yeah.
it. Oh, was that weird?
Oh my God, that was really challenging, I think, because I had to sit there for so long and just so yeah, that was very interesting.
I love that. And where to next? Where can we see you working on something next?
Mm.
Where's your next project? What is next for Allira Potter?
Yeah, I mean, it's so cool because I've left it to the universe to decide on what is next. But at this current moment, the project that I'm working on is We Are Expansive, which is just to help women understand who they are and who they want to become. So I guess you can find everything on social media at the moment.
Incredible. Now, I want to end on some
Mm,
lasting sort of comments or advice based on your own
mm,
experience for
mhm,
women or
mhm,
anybody watching this. Firstly, to that woman that is listening to this and that may be struggling at knowing who they are, knowing what self
mhm.
care looks like for them, what can they do and what would you offer them a piece of advice?
I mean, I think the advice that I would give is stop being so hard on yourself. Stop overthinking everything and just find one little way to show up for yourself daily.
Beautiful. What about a young person that's and might be engaging with you online, that's but potentially falling into following a lot of influencers and people that
Mm.
are not great for their feeds? What would be your message to them?
I think my message would be you're probably not going to listen to me because you're a young person and you think you know better than me, and that's cool. But make informed decisions that will benefit your mental health. I think that's really important.
Amazing. And then for you, what do you
Mm.
want your legacy to be?
That's a cool question. I think I just want my legacy to be just, I just want to make sure that I've made as much of an impact on people, like in whatever way, whether that's from a social media post in person. So I think that's what I would just want to leave. I just want to leave like a really positive impact on the world.
That's incredible. I love that. Not only empowering your own footprint, but those around you, and that's
Mm.
amazing. If only we had more of you out there, and we need to get people into your feed. So where can people follow
Yes.
you and find you as well?
Yeah, so you can find me Potter on my main Insta, or yeah, we are expansive on Instagram, and come and follow and come and learn.
Incredible. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast. It was honestly a pleasure to hear your story and your journey and what you were doing today. And as I said, just keep at it, keep inspiring and empowering women around the world in the work that you're doing, as well as yourself.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. And thank you as well to everyone else out there for joining us for another Secret Sunday session. We'll catch you guys all next time.